Hello and welcome to the final episode of Kitbashed Contenders Season 1. It's been a long month where our contenders have tried to make something new from a Hobgrot sprue, each delivering a fantastic final piece that pushed the boundaries of what they could do with Hobgrots within the setting. Some made more Hobgrots, some made something new entirely. Some put on chariots, some made ensembles, and some played with the finer details to create a hero piece for a normal battle line unit. In doing so, each of them has delivered something far better than I could have expected. Going into this, I had some expectations of how much people could do with it, but they've each exceeded models I've created in my own collection using the Hobgrot sprue, which I've done an entire army with, so they've really pushed it forwards. My aim was trying to showcase conversions as a medium of its own. There's a lot of painting competitions out there which you can convert for. There's a lot of gaming competitions out there which you can use convert models in. But each requires that additional element, gaming or painting. Conversions of themselves are a fantastic creative exercise, and seeing what they could push forwards in this competition really showcases how much of an art form converting can be. There's been some teething issues. Being the first time to run a stream, there's been delays on my end, there's been some technical issues. However, the sheer creativity of each of our contenders has helped me really push this forward, and I have a huge amount of optimism for Season 2 to see what else we can do with the competition. I'll refine things on my end, and I hope the same excellent standard of converting comes from the Season 2 contenders. But way before that, before we consider doing anything for Season 2, it's finally time to crown Season 1's Kitbashed Contender Champion and deliver them a fine t-shirt like I'm wearing. Awesomely modelled. So rather than listen to me any longer, let's get to the votes, find out who won, how the vote lay, and what the public thought. So, with the final scores tabulated, none of you can see them yet, only I can. So it's time to get your honest feedback on what you think of the other contenders' work and the contest in general.
Okay.
What do you think? So I'll name one off my head. So the ensemble of Catagrot from Sam.
I think that's probably one of my favorites because I read the original model, Catacross, and I think that this version of Sam is actually really good. It looks the part, and also it has that flair that looks a little bit more like like Hobgrot or a Goblin. So I think that the fun of it with the how solemn and how like in general looks it, I think it works really well.
At the other end of the spectrum, we've got the very detailed Necromancer from Grant. What?
I think I really like it because it's a different twist on the.
Yes.
And I think that really adds to like the different possibilities. It could be from Haish, or it could be like Hobgrot that has sell his like their soul to Nagash or something like that. So I think that it really creates like a huge opportunity for like coming up with your own lore and all of that. So I think it's good.
There's so much character packed into the little piece there because you both accentuated the model you were given without building out so much around it. Everything went into the character piece of the models.
Mm-hmm.
What else we got next? So we've got the Swashbuckler from Will.
That's a really interesting one because I think that when I was seeing it like start becoming what it is, it's like that's interesting. I don't know how it's gonna come out, but I think that the look of it looks really good, and I think it's a fun character on one side because you have like different proportions that you would expect from maybe like a duelist or a Swashbuckler, but at the same time it has all those elements that make it like its own unique character. So I think it's a really good combination of like the typical elements of what you'd expect on a pirate or a Swashbuckler, but with those traits from a Hobgrot.
Lovely. And then finally, the Squig Chariot from Ben.
Yeah, I think it's really fun one because first of all, it's got squids, so that's always a win. Then I think that it has a lot of movement as well, and I think that all the different elements that take part of it, and because I really love chariots, I think that they work really well. So I think that's it's a win.
So which of your other contenders would you say is your favourite model out of the contest?
Oof. I think it's gonna be between the Chariot and Catacross, just because I really like specific elements of those individual designs. So I think that it's down to those two things. But again, I really like what everyone has created, because I think that everyone was able to add something unique, part of their personality and like their own technique and all of that. So I think that was really fun.
Yeah, so when I was judging it with Kirillov, we went through it, and each of you has done a different thing so well. So it then goes down to that subjective part of what speaks to, obviously, each person more, because you've all taken such different routes and done such different technical things so well that none's better than the other. It purely goes down to, this is amazing, I love them all.
Yep.
So if you were to do it over, is there anything you'd do differently?
I mean, for me, it was an opportunity to create a character that maybe I was not going to use on any of the armies or any other projects. So I think that if I were down to have another go with a Hobgrot, for example, and if GW hadn't released the assassin from the Skaven range, I would have done something similar to that, because some of the swords from the Hobgrots, they have the blood dripping from it, which would really translate it to a poison or venom. So I think that you could really do something unique with that. And because of the size, like a Skaven head works really well with them. So I think that maybe something like that, or even like a Grey Seer, like trying to dig deeper into like the more arcane and trying to create like something like swirls of energy around them. I think I will be doing something like that, I think,
That's all very good ideas, actually. So what have you been up to hobby-wise? So the contest closed 18th of June, about 2 weeks ago. What have you been up to on your hobby bench since then?
So I haven't done quite a lot lately, because like just before the contest began, I had to finish like painting an army, so I was a little bit like burned with everything. So now I've been picking up a few things to try to build, like using some of the inspiration from my giants, which are like machines, trying to build a Thanquol using those elements. And funnily enough, for the body, I am using a Hobgrot.
Awesome.
So the body of the Skaven, I'm using a Hobgrot. So yeah, just trying to, may as well, because it works really well. The position of the arms work quite well for like where I'm putting the cockpit, or more or less, if you want to call it. So I think, that's what I'm doing at the moment. Like, I haven't had much time to do anything, really.
Perfect. Well, I look forward to seeing those, because the conversions you bought before this and during the contest are fantastic models. So what would be your converting top tip for anyone using a Hobgrot to convert from?
I think that, first of all, like, don't be afraid of like trying anything. Like, what was really good about this contest is that as you have the model that you need to convert, you can just go crazy with it, and you don't have to really dread, which model I'm going to use as a base. So just go crazy with it and just have a good go. And then I think, because of the design of it, because it has part of it that are like flesh just showing their skin, and part of it that are armor, you can actually, and because of the size is not exactly proportionate to like the head, for example, like some of the limbs are a little bit nimble and longer, and legs are shorter as well. I think that if you cut some of the bits, it works really with with longer legs, or on top of something. So yeah, just have a go crazy, cut limbs, put the other limbs, and don't be afraid of trying new things.
A great policy, especially with converting. Go absolutely wild. And obviously, if you're not building it for a specific unit, your own imagination and your bits pile is the limits.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing what you come up with in the future then, and the judging will be shown as soon as this episode goes live. So, thank you very much.
So, thank you.
I am joined by Will, whose final model was submitted on the 18th of June on all the other contenders. The votes are locked in, and none of you know the results, and you won't find out until this episode goes out, just to be cruel to you all. It's good, isn't it? So, having seen everyone's work, and obviously knowing what you're up against, what did you think about your other contenders' work?
It's very strong. Very, very strong. with the other contenders that we've got, there's one or two that are supremely strong, and the ones that are not, in my opinion, not quite there, are still fantastic conversions. There's just been some that have just absolutely hit it out of the park and just gone off on one. I'm like, I didn't even think about that.
Yes, some have gone very fine detail, solo hero. Some have gone very grandiose, big, and obviously you're towards the grandiose side. You got the large scenic base there. You're sort of, there's a lot of fine detail on one side and a lot of kind of scenes on the other side. Best way to describe it?
Yeah. I think with mine, it was very much that I set a scene.
Yep.
And maybe this time there was a lot that went into it.
Yes.
But I don't know whether maybe my direction was slightly different to everyone else's, because looking at people like John's and Sam's and Grant's and Ben's, they all took the model initially as fully sculpted, and I think if anything sort of negative for myself, I've almost semi-ignored the model.
Well, see, John's built the lower half out of Illuminef, so a lot like yourself, it has built out from the model. So his torso is Hobgrot, but roughly the same way yours is.
Yeah, I know. I think if I was to do it again with this one, I probably would either lean more into the grot side,
yep,
or lean more into some of the bits with the actual grot. But like the other contenders stuff, my goodness, it's just amazing what they've done, staying probably more faithful to the kits than I have. It's they're just incredible, like little pieces, and like.
I believe you've frozen
with his loom. Incredible they've done mixing the kits and then going ahead with Ben and his chariot, just mixing just more destruction kits in with it to see that the whole range just works.
Yeah,
is great.
So if you had to pick a favourite out of your opposition, as unnatural as that feels, what would be your favourite out of the other four so far?
There's bits I like about everybody's.
Yeah.
But there's a feeling and sort of like an element of what kits we used and how they all tie together, and sort of like setting a scene but being more simple with it, that I just love about the chariot from Ben. It's just my favourite one as it stands. Not saying that there's anything wrong with any of the other ones. There's just something about the sort of the energy that goes through that one that I just love.
Yeah, so I mean, a good example, I can tell you this one. The public vote, the host, and the judge all picked a different first and second place. So let's give a good idea of how personal and subjective it is. No one subset of groups voted for the same person in first and second. So it shows you just how much variation there was there and how much it speaks to different people. That, like I said, it's not taking anything away from anyone else, because everyone's voting for these different things. I mean, the top three of you, there's 1 point separating the top three. It is, it is that type of. So, see, when you say favourite, it's not taking anything away from anything others. It's saying what speaks to you personally.
Yeah, and I think part of the thing is knowing that there's like the Snotling Pump Wagon in there, the Squigs, the simple head swap on the character, but one that's fitting with the rest of the model, and with it barreling forwards, just that sort of energy that it gets through that. It just there's the playfulness, there's the narrativeness, there's the cleverness in components that it just ticks a lot of buttons. Not that anyone else's doesn't, but that one seems to sort of
It speaks to you in a way.
strike me more.
So you mentioned a bit on this earlier. If you were to do it over, do you feel the sculpting was setting yourself that challenge? Because you put a lot of work into redefining the body, didn't you?
I think if it was still the Hobgrot kit again, I think I might have possibly looked at buying bits, because everything that I did was from my own bits box. So there was no extra bits that I didn't already own. So maybe I would have lent more into being a destruction type of model and being sort of more rough around the edges rather than going sort of more dwarf Cities of Sigmar sort of style.
But do you feel going a bit more diverging gives you that unique flair if you're against 4 Hobgrots, for example?
Maybe, but equally it makes it a lot harder to compare.
Yeah.
Because if you've got 4 Hobgrots, then
and Bob the Dwarf in the corner,
are comparing them as to what they've done and seeing what they've done. Because with the image that's currently on the screen, that is the silhouette of the Hobgrot that I used. But it's difficult if you didn't know to know that it was a Hobgrot.
That's quite a nice thing, that's silhouette of the Hobgrot you used, but I've seen your model and your silhouette is now so different, so redefined. But it is that model. That is the base model you've used.
Yeah, but it also makes the question that when you lose something from the model, like lose the silhouette, does it then still evoke the fact of it being a Hobgrot? And it's cool. I love the model. It's going to be one of my favourite conversions on the shelf. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes to comparing it against other Hobgrots, if you take something away, maybe it takes away some of the feeling to say I'm a Hobgrot or I can be compared as a Hobgrot or something. So yeah, maybe if I was to do it again, rather than do a head swap for a dwarf, I might have kept the Hobgrot head and do something different, maybe sculpt a beard or something on him.
That makes sense.
But I look at the model and I go, yeah, sculpting the parrot was a challenge. Loved it. Sculpting water and doing water effects for the first time, difficult, but I'm pleased with what.
And you've done it now, so you know you can do it in future.
I've done it now as a challenge, and the fact of doing it at all, if you told me 10 years ago or so that I was going to do it, I would have laughed, because my kit bashing was cut and sharp and just find a plastic kit and try and, if there's a gap in it, maybe try and put some extra glue in there. So yeah, I'm pleased with how it's turned out, but going as far as I did does make it, I feel, might hold against me just for the fact of making it more difficult to compare with the quality other entries that have come through that are more recognisable as being from the Hobgrot kit.
So I got your final photo on the 18th. What have you been up to hobby-wise between then and now? It's about 2 weeks.
Then and now, I have been doing some paintings. As mentioned in the last interview, I've been painting some Star Wars Legion, and I have been posting on Twitter recently some of my latest conversion, or rather, a conversion that I've had in my backlog. That I've made a Land Raider Prometheus for my, and I have been painting him away, and he's almost finished now. So having a couple of extra models under my belt and out of the backlog is good. So it's slightly, it's good to have them painted.
Yeah,
it's me putting off what I'm actually going to do as the next thing.
It's hobby count.
Yeah,
exactly. Right, so that is roughly 9 minutes in. I will call it there so we get more time to talk to our other contenders. Thank you very much for joining me again. The judging will be in this final episode when it goes live, so you will find out with the general public who was number 1.
Well, good luck to everyone, and thank you again for having us a part of this.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Cheers.
I'm joined by Ben, who as of the 18th of June has submitted his final model for us. So now there's no chance of it biasing the competition. Let's get your thoughts on the other contenders' works, what you love about them. So I'll let you go through them rather than me guide them. So start with one. What's your favourite of your fellow contenders' works?
Okay, so I did vote in the
Public vote.
audience vote. I think I put myself first. That seems like what a hobgrot would do.
Yeah.
But after that, actually, you know what? I'm not even sure I did put myself first. Out of the other contenders, the one I liked the most was the Monkey King one.
Yep. That would be John's one.
John's one was fantastic. I thought it was the best use of the original sprue. He kept so he created a very different mood, but used the most parts. But while using a lot of the original sprue, I think. Obviously there were a load of really, really great ideas.
Yes.
But that felt like the most transformative with what we knew.
That makes sense, yeah. So we'll go through some of the others. The Swashbuckler.
Yeah, so that was actually my second favourite as well. Again, really great sort of transformation. And the sculpting on it as well was fantastic. I don't mean this in a sort of disparaging way, but like what he managed to create was so different from that base model that it looked like a completely different thing. It was almost unrecognizable.
Yeah, so I had a catch up with Will before this, and we talked about that one. He said his concern was maybe that could have gone against him in terms of the judging, because when you're trying to judge what you could do with a hobgrot and something looks so different, how's your mind going to conceive it versus the other ones that obviously have clearly progressed from a hobgrot? So obviously I know that was a concern of his, that obviously where he has resculpted, like I said, it is something very different from the base. And it's like, how are people going to interpret that as a hobgrot?
Yeah.
Which he set himself definitely a challenge there with resculpting the entire chest piece. That was ballsy.
Yeah. I mean, and it came out looking great.
Yes.
And I'm a sucker for a scenic base. So his the sort of dock side with there's like a clamshell and some seaweed or coral or something. Yeah, I thought it came together really, really nicely.
What about the catgrot from Sam with the ensemble around him?
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like? It was a fantastic parody, I thought. The hobgrot leader with a ridiculously oversized spear, sort of lording it over all of the other grots. The way that she managed to copy Catacross and like all of his followers, his retinue as well.
It was incredibly faithful recreation there, wasn't it? That obviously
exactly.
Whilst putting a grot on it, it's just it was a really I do love an ensemble piece. I loved Catacross when he first came out because of you got that full story around. A lot like the scenic base with Will's one. You get the story by the things around them.
Yeah. Like there were a lot of models on there, but you could tell who the leader was.
Yeah. And finally, the necromantic grot from Grant.
Yeah, Grant's one was also really fantastic transformation with using a lot of what was on the original sprue, I thought. There was, I mean, it was still really obviously a hobgrot. And he added only small details that completely transformed it. I thought it was really understated and clever use of the original sprue to create a leader.
Yeah, he went into the finer details because I like the withered Nighthawk limbs on him, where obviously it's a hobgrot, but you can tell it's kind of musculature has changed on it. So by using a thin limb, you can go, not all hobgrots are the same height, weight, build, you know. Necromancers are always weedy, regardless of the species.
Yeah. There's something wrong with them.
Something deeply wrong to make you play with corpses. Right, so if you were to do it over, start at the beginning, having seen anything now, would you do anything differently?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about just now using a lot of the original model. I feel like the focus of my model was not the Hobgrot. The focus was the Chariot and the Squigs. I'm really happy with what I ended up with.
Yeah.
But I sort of feel like I missed the spec. I was asked to create a hero from a Hobgrot sprue, and what I did was I created a hero and I put a bit of a Hobgrot sprue on it.
But a chariot's not a hero. A chariot's a war machine. The Hobgrot makes it a hero.
Well, I mean, that's true, but I feel like I used more plastic from the Squig Herd set and from the Snotling Blood Bowl set than I did from the Hobgrot set. So if I were to do it again, I would try to incorporate more Hobgrot stuff, and maybe that's just like bolting on their chest pieces onto the chariot itself, using ropes instead of chains, because they've got like the red ropes
around their
tying their armor on. Just try to integrate it a bit more.
That makes sense. Would you still go for a similar thing? So you'd still go chariot?
Yeah, I mean that was my first idea, and I do feel, if I do say so myself, I feel like I nailed what I was going.
Oh yeah,
for.
especially with the motion, where you've executed that level of ramshackle, speeding forwards, bouncing over it. It works so well. So obviously Squigs, and obviously the pump wagon with the collapsed wheel in at the back.
Yeah. I'm so pleased with it. In fact, actually, the question was, would I do a chariot again? The answer to that is no, I wouldn't, because I already got it perfect the first time.
That's fair. Right, so after the 18th of June, obviously you were no longer working on your Contenders competition. What hobby have you been up to?
Yeah, I've taken a little bit of a break, to be honest. I've been working on some Boingrot Bounders. Because the new season of war out, cavalry looks like it's going to be really important. So I figured I'd get some Squig cavalry in. But yeah, I mean, my painting's really slowed down. I think I overdid it. I went really, really hard on it.
Yeah.
And now I need a bit of a break, so I'm cooling off. But I'm gonna get back to it. I'm gonna finish off these Boingrots. Then, as I've said in a few of these interviews, I've got the beetle to work.
Yeah. Going for the big one next.
Mm-hmm. Oh. I've got a sort of mini local tournament on the 10th.
Yeah.
So if I can at least get the beetle based for then, I can play with it.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to see what you're doing. You will see the final judging when the episode goes live. So I'm telling none of you who's won until I've recorded with all of you. It should go live on the Wednesday this week. So you've only got about 2 days to wait now. And then you will know.
Okay.
So thank you very much. And I'll catch you again soon. I'm joined by Grant, whose final model submitted about 3 weeks ago. So nothing we say now can affect the final scores, which means I can ask your opinions on what you think of the other models. It works out quite well. So let's start from the top. Let's go with Catagrot, the Catagrot parody from Sam. What's your thoughts?
I am upset at how good this is. I think it is very clever. And I think that if I really wish I had that many Noblars to hand. I think Noblars are beautiful little creatures, and I never really got into them when they were available.
Yeah,
but I think it's very clever and should win. I think that's about where I'm at with it.
There was going to be a later question about your favourite, but I think we've blown straight into that.
Yeah, just in terms of understanding the brief, in terms of working with the model, in terms of like mashing other stuff from the Cruel Boys range in there, but also doing some other things, and establishing a Hobgrot as like different from these Noblars in some way, the same way that Catacross is different from his lads. Beautiful, wonderful work.
It's quite a faithful parody as well. So that was one of the things I liked about that one, is that you've taken an original model and you've got the attention to detail to mimic the companions with each one. So in terms of faithfulness to the original, that's a very sort of a faithful model. So next up is the Ramshackle Chariot from Ben.
The very first conversion I ever made was a Squig Chariot. This was back in, I would have been in the last year of primary school.
Right.
And so I ordered the bits, because this is back when you could get metal bits.
Yeah.
I ordered individual squigs, and I ordered like I got some jewelry chain, I got a Beastman chariot and some wheels. I think it was Rebel Grots I had in it.
Yeah.
Who were pulling it. And like, thinking back on it now, I don't think the squigs were even running, the ones I picked. It didn't really communicate movement in the same way as the Squig Chariot here did. But I've got I have a great fondness to the idea of tying something to a squig, and I think this has been done elegantly here.
Yeah, it's definitely one where you go. There's motion in the model, and I love a motion model a lot. Like with your wisps, I like seeing the scene as though it's moving. So adding those touches in where you can do it. So a lot of you, so I think yourself, John's Monkey King, and then obviously Ben's Chariot, there's a sense of motion within the model, obviously either through smoke or fire, or obviously Chariot that's about to fall over sideways based on how Grots are steering it. Which brings us nicely on to John's, the Monkey King.
I wanted to see more of the Hobgrot in this. I feel like there's this really beautiful model. And I love the legend of the Monkey King. I love the story behind it, and any sort of trickster god. I'm there for that. But yeah, I wanted to see more Hobgrot. I think like it's his face, and from what I can tell, maybe his hat. But
maybe chest. I'm not.
Yeah, and like I want to stress, they're all beautiful.
Oh yeah, they're all amazing.
Done very well. This isn't like America's Next Top Model or what have you. Well, we're going to be like, oh, her raggedy ass hair or what have you. Everyone did.
Oh yeah, it was amazing.
But I wanted to see more. I wanted to see more Hobgrot in that.
It's funny because my interview with Ben just now, he counted yours and John's as the ones who'd used the most Hobgrot, or the Hobgrot was the biggest focus within those models. Because obviously,
I suppose so.
Will, Sam, and himself have both used a lot of other kits around the Hobgrot in order to... And he felt that potentially his Hobgrot was not the focus, the Chariot was for him. Which we're on to now, the Swashbuckler from Will.
Again, not a lot of Hobgrot left under that.
Yeah, so it's the bones of one.
Fantasy Pirates. What was his name? Captain Longdrog, whatever his name was, from the old Dogs of War.
You're before my time there. I remember the dudes with the crow wings, and that is it.
Oh no, it was Longdrog Silver, I believe. He was like they were dwarven pirates, and he was an unusually tall dwarf, but still like shorter than everyone else. But it evoked that for me. It evoked some of the ogre man-eaters, some of the sort of like broader applications of pirates in the Warhammer world. And much like mine, I think, it felt quite old school, which I quite
It reminded me of a White Dwarf subscription model. That was, that the old ones used to have like the pirate hunter and then the dude on the island with the telescope. It reminded me of those sort of classic models. Yeah,
absolutely. And the base was lovely as well. The detailing around the base, the jetty that he was on, I really liked. But yeah, I feel again, not enough Hobgrot.
See, this was Will's concern. So I caught up with Will as one of the first final catch-ups. And I was like, when you're judging what you can do with a Hobgrot competition, his concern was you don't immediately think Hobgrot when you look at his final model. So it's really hard to translate that into judging when you've got some quite clearly Hobgrot heroes and then one that's so far left field. How do you factor that in together? So he said
it's quite tricky as well, because it was like, I think the brief he gave us was to make a new hero, but not like a new Hobgrot hero.
It was to make a hero using the Hobgrot sprue. That was a very specific rule.
So like I stuck with a Hobgrot for mine, but I could it's definitely a hero.
Oh yeah, it's a hero.
A lot of love and attention.
But obviously, I mean, like you said to me, he put so much more pressure on himself by having to resculpt it and then not visually being sort of Hobgrot-y.
Yeah. And it's hard sculpting.
Oh, it is. That was amazingly done, the amount of effort that went into that.
Yeah, I've been doing scratch builds of late, and it's you work 4 times as hard and it looks maybe half as good.
And you have to wait for the cure time, so you're actually extending your build time by so much.
Yeah.
All right, so I believe, let's go through this. So we've looked at Catcup, we've looked at the Chariot, we've looked at the Monkey King, and we've looked at the Swashbuckler. So that is your 4 fellow contenders. Probably doesn't bear asking because you've already made it clear, but which was your favourite of your 4 contenders?
I really like Catagro. I thought it was playful. I thought it was fun. It is not enough gags in Warhammer these days. And even in like the Cruel Boys army, which is an orc army, I'll have
They're serious.
They're all dreadfully serious with their poison. The only fun thing about them is their big ugly shields.
Potgrot. I would argue Potgrot's quite fun. He's a grot in a pot.
Look. He needs to be cuter, or like maybe more than 2 pieces. It didn't. I've got an unpainted Potgrot in my cupboard. I've no love for the Potgrot, but it's a lovely idea. I'll give it that.
The Stab Grot as well, that could be quite funny, but it should be called something like an ankle biter, something more comedic with the name.
Something more nobler.
Yeah, there you go. So something you go, oh yeah, it's funny because he's literally just stabbed you in the ankles. That kind of thing.
Yeah. The Cruel Boys are, from what I can tell, an attempt to make orcs more serious, the same way that Iron Jaws were. And while I really like the whole sort of fighting fantasy, like ugly buggers, look at them, I really like that. But I think they lost a little. They lost a little bit of the humor there, which I'm really happy to see brought back. So yeah, Catagro is my vote for winner.
Awesome. And then finally, I've seen a lot on your Twitter feed, but what have you been up to since the contest closed? Because you've been a busy man.
What have I been up to? I'm seeing what I've got. I've been making, so in hobby terms, I've been making some night haunt. It's probably not going to show up very well.
Close to my screen here. Sorry for him to see my forehead. There we go. We had focus briefly. That's good.
Come on. There we go.
Is that contrast paints as well?
It's contrast and then painstaking. That's not going to show. It's contrast base and then Vallejo over the top. But I'm making a woodland night haunt. So I've been inspired by that film, The Village, I believe it's called. It's an old M. Night Shyamalan one, where they have loads of red and yellow cloaks. So I just decided to dress them in that. And I've got some. You can see here. I've got some tarot themed banshees. That's the sword from the swords deck, and she's sort of like floating around it. So that's fun. That's what I've been spending my afternoons doing.
Awesome.
And when I'm not writing role playing games, we launched the playtest for our first new thing in a while. It's called Hollows, which is about hunting giant monsters, which is very
nicely thematic. Quite linked to hobby as well. You go.
Yeah, well, it's my job. I can't get away from it. You know,
do what you love. There you go.
Yeah, do what you love, and you'll never feel satisfied again. That's what they always say, isn't it?
I do a job I hate, and I always feel satisfied, so that's fine. Right. Awesome. Thank you very much for catching up with me. The vote and the final episode will go live on Wednesday of this week, optimistically. So very excited to see who. Well, I know who wins, but very excited to see the rest of you find out who wins. Cheers. I'm joined by Sam. Now, as all the final models are submitted, anything we say will not impact the final scores at all. So we finally get your feedback on what your other contenders did during the contest. Now, I'm hoping you can remember what they are, because I've not provided any picture prompts here, so I'm relying entirely on your memory.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll go from the top. We'll go from, I'm trying to figure out what we've got. So, go Grant's Necromancer.
Yep, I mean, nailed it. Definitely. It's looking very cool.
So
sticking fairly closely with like the original thing, but definitely got flavour in there. So
it's one of the more finely detailed but concise on the single model out of the contest. So obviously, similar vein, you got John's the Monkey King.
Yeah, with the swirly, flamey stick.
Doodad,
I mean, totally not unexpected from John to have some sort of crazy whirling, mysterious energy thing. So that was really cool. Definitely says him on it.
There's a little flair of personality in each of the models that go, I can tell who made this. This is definitely theirs. We've got on to Will. So obviously Will gave himself the challenge of resculpting the entire body of the Hobgrot to make a Swashbuckler.
Yeah, the little pirate guy. I mean, and him just doesn't look recognizable almost as what it was, which is amazing. But also the little kind of diorama basing on it just sets it off so well. And I think he's got a couple of little friends in there on the basing as well.
There's a parrot on there and a couple of barnacles.
Yeah.
And then finally, the chariot pulled by Squigs from Ben.
I mean, if I'd had some, definitely would have gone there. Like, if you're gonna have a Hobgrot hero, like the first thing I went to was mounted.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anything, so that nailed it. Like, brilliant.
So your own one was the only ensemble out of the contest. You've each kind of gone with different things. So John's and Grant's I'd consider probably the most similar. So single model focal point.
Yeah.
So your ensemble, Ben is Chariot. Will is a very scenic base around it, so it feels like a character series piece.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick a favourite, not including your own, because I don't want people voting for themselves on this one, what would you say would have been your favourite out of the other four?
I mean, it's hard because they're all very cool in their own right.
Yeah.
Like, especially the pirate and the necromancer. But I mean, the Monkey King kind of going off on its own thing. But I think it's got to be the chariot. Like, it's just got so much energy.
Yeah. There's a lot of personality packed into that model.
Yeah.
So see, I know Ben was concerned that the chariot was his focal point, not the Hobgrot there. So he got in his own head about the model quite a lot when making it in terms of, have I lost the hero?
Well, I mean, I can understand that completely, because obviously with the Squigs on there, like, they've got quite a lot of character as well.
Yeah.
So I had a similar issue with mine.
I was going to say, did you worry your
other
companions?
Little guys, I'm like, is this still kind of the focus?
Yeah.
Or have we lost it a bit in the crowd? So trying to make sure that, like, the Hobgrot supplied was still the main.
Yeah, because you both used elevation to make the Hobgrot taller, more eye-catching, the focal point of the models, which obviously is a similarity in making it stand out.
Yeah.
So if you had to do it over again, having seen what everyone else did, would you do anything differently?
I mean, I definitely enjoyed Catgrot.
Yeah.
As it was. There were a couple of other things that I considered at the time. So if I was doing it again as a second go, I'd probably put wings on it, let's be honest.
Some kind of Hobgrot flying contraption.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, as it stands, I'm quite happy with them. But yeah, some sort of, the Mechanicum flyers with those, like, the old goblin catapult.
Oh, the Doom Divers.
Yeah, something, that's the one, something like that. That would be fun. But yeah, no, I think they've all come out really well.
Would have captured the motion. Obviously, that would have got the thing from Ben that you like about the motion in the models. Obviously, be good as well. So a quick reminder of how the voting works in this competition. The public vote closed on 25th of June, and that constituted 1/3 of each contender's final score. Then the judges' vote and the host vote each contributed 1/3 each. Combining these points together, we will finally select our champion for Season 1. So let's move on to the public vote to find out what you thought of these models and who was the public's first choice. Throughout the public voting process, every contender was first for a period. We got over 100 votes coming in, and each of them really pushed their own point of view towards what was the best way of converting this kit. As with all artistic processes, it's very subjective as to what is the best conversion. With such a high standard across the board, you could see the votes piling in, where the different players came to the top of the pile time and time again. In a closely fought battle, Sam's ensemble piece of the Catgrot took the public's heart and finally took the 5 points available from the public vote. Ben came in second on the public vote, with his Squig Chariot really steaming ahead. And then with Will's fancy pirate Swashbuckler, he took the 3rd place from the public vote. Next, I added my own votes to the process. This is a really tough process to try and pick out what is the best conversion for me. Now, I love big models, I love shiny models, I love fine detailed models, and every contender had an element that I absolutely loved. This made it so challenging to say one was better than another. So it came down to what speaks to me more. Now, there was something about Ben's chariot model with the motion within the kit that made it feel so cohesive, such a beautiful element pushing forwards, where the motion carried from the Squigs through his chariot back, bouncing unstably. This really pushed it forwards by that slight nudge to take my personal first slot. Sam's ensemble filled out my second slot for me, where all of the fine little companions filled out a role matching the original model and showed a beautiful diligence to honouring the original model whilst making her own spin on it and fitting with the confines of competition. Finally, Will took my third slot. His sculpting was amazing. His concept really took the bones of the model and shaped it to his own project, his own imagination, and made it something unique and personal to him. The basing on it also pushed it forwards, and these three were really hard to pick my number one out of. John and Grant's pieces were all finely detailed single character pieces. Now, the converting stand on both of them was just as good as the other three. However, they didn't necessarily nudge me forwards in quite the same way. That is just my personal taste, however. Anyone that's met me knows I do big and shiny models, and that's ultimately what my heart had to go with in the end. Finally, we had our judges voting. Kira reminded me just how hard it is to pick a best out of 5 such strong pieces. As you can see, what they favoured is different to what I favoured. The subjective process really lets you see as a model what speaks to you, what helps you push forward a conversion and bring your own vision to the kit. Now this finally switched around who was in our first position. It came down to just 1 point separating our top 3 contenders here. However, with the final scores tabulated, with the judge, the host and the public having voted, which means a grand total of 115 different votes coming in here, Ben takes our final position as our champion. Well deserved, a beautiful model, but I cannot stress enough how tight it was between these 5. Each of them has delivered a fantastic hero piece worthy of mention and worthy of recognition. To have it so close at the end shows the standard that everyone brought to the competition really pushes amazing things forwards. I have so much respect and so much joy from what each of them produced from a single Hobgrot sprue. Something that was never designed to be a hero, something designed to be filled in hordes. You could lose sight of all of them, and yet in making it hero, they become centerpieces, beautiful kits that define a project. So let's look at our winner, crown them, meet our contenders, and finally deliver the prize to our well-deserved Season 1 Kitbashed Contenders champion, Ben. And here it is, the final piece of our Kitbashed Contenders Season 1 champion, the Squig Chariot, bouncing ramshackle across the landscape, capturing a beautiful sense of motion, grot superiority, and a ramshackle nature that just wowed our public vote and our judges. This kit was never designed to be a hero, but he's moved it forwards to create a model that's cohesive, in full motion, ramshackle, and just captures a level of personality that is perfect with hobgrots and grots in general. My personal pick to be number 1, and I'm glad he won it out. But he was against tough competition and had to earn this every single step of the way. Every little detail pushes his model forwards and is a beautiful Season 1 Contenders champion piece. I'm so proud of the work my contenders have done, and I'd love to catch up with them now, to work out how they felt this went, and to tell Ben he's our winner.